I'll be there like tomorrow in remote Texas to pick up this plane. So as your viewers saw last video, Christian and I outlined the story of our Cirrus SR20 ownership, the ups and downs, the lefts and rights, and the eventual profit made in the end, despite all the things we went through with that plane. And we mentioned how we sold it to be able to have some purchase power of some other planes. And boy, did we find a great plane. That's what we're sharing today, the story of our Beechcraft Bonanza F-33A.
So we took everything that we learned from that adventure and we went out and we are asking for it all over again. We took what we learned, we went against many recommendations and did it all over again. Found a seemingly amazing smoking deal on this Beechcraft and forewent our opportunity to view the plane in person or put it through a pre-buy or have any Beechcraft experience, and we came away with it at a fantastic price.
Sight unseen. Again. Here we go again. So this is definitely another juicy airplane purchase story, except this time I think things went a little more to plan. I think we got a little more lucky on this one. So starting from the beginning, right after we found this deal and we're about to pull the trigger on it, we called up our buddy Owen, once again at Fly with Owen on Instagram, great guy, and our resident Bonanza expert. This guy, I mean, Owen's like 22, our age, he flies Gulfstreams, crazy planes, but he has a thing for Bonanzas. He loves them, hundreds of hours in Bonanzas. So we said, Owen, we found this deal, we're gonna do this thing.
Is it a good deal?
Yeah. What's your opinion on it? Yeah. Would you recommend buying this airplane? And he says, I think this is a great deal, looks like a great plane. How about I give you a little money and we go in on it together? And we're like, great idea. So he put in some money and we partnered up on this thing and
spread out the risk a little bit.
Right. We lower the risk on our part in case all is wrong. Owen has a little risk on his back too. But no, we wanted him on the deal so that he could have a potential upside profit, and his way of putting time and effort into the deal was flying the thing back, something that we couldn't do. That's where Owen came into the table and got his percentage on the plane. So. That was the plan, and now it came time to actually pick up the plane.
Which, fun fact, was more than 2 times as much heads up as we gave him for our last Cirrus deal. On the Cirrus, we called him up. He was in class, and he took the next flight, drove straight to the airport, and we rendezvoused perfectly in Houston, Texas, as we were driving ultimately to Louisiana.
So Owen's the man. He really comes in clutch. So anyway, on this Texas deal, once again, he was like, sure, I guess I got a couple things. I'll move around some flights. I'll be there tomorrow in remote Texas to pick up this plane. So
hopefully the plane doesn't get him stranded because he's got a gig to fly some G4 somewhere.
Yeah, he's a busy guy, but he fit us in to go pick up this Bonanza, and it turns out we couldn't even make it out. We couldn't even find flights to a smaller town in Texas.
That's right.
So we didn't go out. It was just Owen. He met up with the seller. Everything was good. Got the plane, filled it up with fuel, and then began the flight back to Arizona. Not 1,000 miles this time, but still whatever it was, 500 miles, few hour flight. So Christian and I were both here in Arizona, waiting for updates from Owen on our phone, just crossing our fingers that everything's going okay, because the plane hadn't flown in a little while. There was a little bit of a risk involved. I was just hoping I wouldn't get some text saying, oh, I ran into this problem, or this happened, had to land, anything like that. Instead, it was great text messages. Owen's like, yo, this thing is fast, making great time, see you in an hour and a half. And we're like, oh, yes, this is good. So sure enough, it was smooth flying all the way to Arizona, and he made it here 2.5 hours later from Texas.
Yeah, and even though this was our second plane, it felt like the first one all over again. The excitement was through the roof, but really the anticipation and just laying our eyes on the plane for the first time, again, sight unseen. When Owen flew around, he did an extra circle and flew overhead for us. Got to see it, and a perfect landing.
The sweet, sweet sound of that IO 520 turbo normalized motor. Oh, just heavenly as it flew over. Owen did a nice little pass for us, nice flyby before landing. And then it rolled up here for the first time, once again, back on Cloud 9. Chris, I think we got to talk about some of the mods with this plane, because this is a special Bonanza. You'll have some pictures to insert, I'm sure, but it isn't just any 520. Like I said, 520 turbo normalized, so it makes full power all the way up to, I believe, 20,000 feet, which just makes for some insane speeds at altitude because you're not slowing down. Your manifold pressure is still 29 at 19,000 feet. So you're talking nearly 200 knots, all while burning not that much fuel. Like on one of our trips, which we'll talk about in a bit, we're burning like 12 point something gallons, and we're hauling in the speed department. So that's definitely my favorite mod. It's a really expensive thing to do. So if you find a plane that's already turbo normalized, that's like a huge benefit. You know, a lot of buyers will like that, especially if you're doing some mountain flying. And for us, having the property up in Montana, you better bet we're crossing a lot of mountains. So to have that safety net of a turbo on there makes it so nice. So Chris, what other mods you like on the plane?
My favorite is definitely the tip tanks. They look amazing, and the endurance is insane, and there's not a huge weight penalty because you actually get an additional 200-pound weight increase.
Yeah, on that STC, it's like free fuel at that point. So with an extra, it bumps it up to 3,600 pounds. F-33A is 3,400. So with that STC, get an extra 200 pounds. Like, that's great. So you can really, fill it up and still have some good remaining payload with full fuel. I mean, we're talking 120 gallons, 114 usable. But secret, with those tip tanks, you can actually fit 1.5 gallons more per side. So that's an extra 3 gallons. So really usables more like 117, if not a little bit more. Matt Guthmiller was telling us about that because he knows how to stretch his Bonanza endurance. But
that's right, flying around the world.
Anyway, so even with full fuel, you can still carry 3 guys in there with light bags. It's a great numbers plane in that regard. They're absolutely mind blowing when it comes to the tip tanks. The 520 being very conservative on the fuel, and the turbo normalizer being able to pull 180, 190 knots at high elevation. I mean, like it just. You can't beat that.
And the top prop, the Heart Soul Scimitar top prop that it came with,
true,
really increased that performance.
Looks amazing, and you get some climb performance, I'm sure. So this airplane is a beast. Other modifications, not a modification, but they just repainted it pretty recently, so it looks fantastic in the gold blue paint scheme. I really like that. No corrosion, no hail. The plane is just beautiful, way nicer than we expected. The big takeaway from this video is, like, for once we bought something sight unseen, and the plane was like way better than we expected. That never happens, right? All these cars, whenever we buy something sight unseen, it's always like not as nice in person. But this plane, like, it's so nice. Now, of course, it did take a lot of elbow grease cleaning it up. It was sitting for a little while, so the engine needed a major cleaning. We outlined all of these videos on our channel, JR Aviation, and people really enjoyed seeing this thing come back to life and cleaning it up. And then, of course, the modifications that we did. Christian, we want to talk about that. We definitely made this plane even nicer than it was.
Yep.
And that started with the interior that needed some help.
Yeah, so the plane actually didn't come with rear seats at all. And so that was first on the list because we love flying with friends because we have to go flying with friends because we're not pilots. And so we found some used seats on eBay taken out of the same exact year and model and everything. It was perfect fit.
Oh.
And we had these seats that didn't match the front seats and didn't really go with the new paint scheme or anything. And so it was the perfect opportunity to totally refresh the interior. And we found the best shop, local here in Phoenix, Aviation Creations, and we just went wild with it.
They worked magic. I mean, Ron was so creative with the design, and he's like, oh, hey, let's do some diamond stitching and contrasting stitching, and let me redo the armrests, and let's make this nice. And we're like, yes, that sounds good to us. Just let's do it. Let's go full send. So we did a custom one-off interior with Ron, and it turned out so nicely. And it's so comfy. The new foam, it makes long flights a.
Yes, I know all about that comfort because the flight that we lined up right as soon as it was done was a flight from here in Arizona all the way up to northwest Montana.
Yeah, that was what, 6 hours?
Yeah, and I hopped in the back seat figuring we'll trade somewhere around Colorado or Utah, and nope, we went all the way 6 hours, and it was so surprising. When I look back at that and think about what we did, I was not thinking about that during the flight. I was not thinking about my back hurting, my butt hurting, anything. It was so good.
It literally just felt like we were kicking back, relaxing.
Yeah.
Great skies. That probably helped given that there was no turbulence.
True.
So smooth sailing to Montana, but the seats were just made it so nice. So not only do they feel great, but they look great. So 10 out of 10 would recommend Aviation Creations. Just great quality product at a great price and a good turnaround time. We gave them such a limited time before we had to leave on this Montana trip, and they got it done just in time, a day before we left, and we were able to put them to the test the next day. So I guess let's talk about that flight. We're done with modifications. That was our big thing that we did, aside from cleaning it up, is that interior. And then we also had to do a new transponder because it wasn't ADS-B compliant. So we put in a GTX 345, which was like $7,000. So that was pretty expensive, but it's like one of the best transponders you can get. So it was great. We just, you get what you pay for. So we shelled out the cash so that we could have a nice integration with our GMX 200, GNS 480, and the other equipment that was already on board the plane. So it makes just flying it even more of a breeze now. And of course, now we can go in those big airports that without ADS-B weren't allowed to go in before when we first bought the plane. So yeah, that Montana trip. Any other takeaways from that? That was the first time we got to take it to our property in Montana with the private airstrip.
Yes, one of my all-time favorite memories, flying this plane into our new airstrip property. We had never seen the property from above before, never knew exactly what that was going to be like, but that was amazing. And then departing over the lake, flying over Glacier National Park, over to a ranch on the east side, landing on some remote airstrips. The Bonanza was perfect for all of that.
Some of the best memories over the summer were made in that week, flying the Bonanza all throughout Montana, taking some of our relatives, aunts and uncles, cousins that have never been in a small plane and opening their eyes to what GA is like. Like, we love sharing that experience because it's been so impactful for us. So sharing it with other people was great. They loved it, and Owen was so nice taking them up for flights in it all around Montana. So.
Yeah. And don't forget our visit with Matt Guthmiller at his own fly-in community. Just like ours, we got to see the potential and what we might get to look forward to building our little cabin.
That was so much fun, by the way, over Alpine. We had the Bonanza, our Bonanza, Matt's Bonanza, and then other Matt's MU2 Mitsubishi formation. So that was a super cool formation flight.
3 planes with tip tanks. Again, tip tanks look so dang cool.
Oh yeah. From the ground, the 3 planes with tip tanks all looked so neat. So that was another great video, super fun. So like I said, that week was very special. Right after that, we had to go off to Croatia for a car trip. So
we're trying to figure out the range, if we could make it with 1 or 2 or 3 hops to Croatia, maybe doable.
Actually, you probably could. Like, if you did the whole Canada and Iceland and Greenland, you could definitely make it to Europe in the Bonanza, no problem. With that range, a straight shot to London, straight shot to Croatia. Okay, so yeah, so the plane was parked for a couple weeks while we were gone in Europe, and then we were back. And then after that, I did Reno with Owen, so we went to the Reno Air Races with the Bonanza. Once again, I saw some ridiculous numbers. For the first time, I saw not descending level flight over Lake Tahoe, 210 knots. Of course, we had a tailwind, but
ground speed.
Yeah, of course. But like 210 knots, like looking down at ForeFlight, seeing that, I was like, man, we made it over to Reno so fast from San Jose. That was a great memory. Owen let me do all the flying on that one. So it was just really nice. The handling of this plane, I feel like people just have to have flown one in the past to understand like what we're talking about. It feels like a Ferrari in the skies, how whippy, snappy it is, and the controls and how buttery smooth it is. There's a reason everybody loves Bonanzas, and like just the handling characteristics are incredible.
Yeah, which makes me afraid that we're not worthy. It's too nice for us. It's a complex, high performance, amazing dream airplane for a lot of people, and something that might not be the best to train in.
Yeah.
And
people wonder, they saw us buying it and they're like, are you crazy? Are you training in that thing?
Are you even crazier than you were with your serious adventure story?
Yeah, so we're not planning to do any training in it. Sure, we're learning in it, like flying with Owen, like we're learning a ton, which is great. As long as we're learning every day, like that works for us. So no, we're not going to go get our ticket in a turbo, hot, modded Bonanza. But we have learned a lot, so that's priceless information. Remember, the whole reason we bought this plane was because it was a good deal. Owen also likes Bonanzas. Owen put up a little money. It was more of an investment, upgrade opportunity, put some money into it and maybe make a little profit while having a heck of a lot of fun at the same time. That's the goal for the plane. I think we've been able to do that. We still have it. It's currently with Owen over in California because obviously we don't have hangar space here with this new guy here. Coming next story. But eventually we'll sell the Bonanza. But until then, we'll keep enjoying it like we did in Catalina.
Yeah, how could I forget? That was a ton of fun. Got to fly with more friends, give them their first experience, and that is an awesome way to do Catalina. You're over there in 15 minutes or something, leaving out of John Wayne or less. That is so cool, and just really amazing views that you can't get any other way. So really fun getting to share that with everybody in that video. The approach was super cool, also a little bit technical, but Owen handled it. And the departure was even a little more wild. Got to just have a lot of fun with it, and then bring it down along the coastline and over the little town, and just...
It is a pretty crazy feeling being in the back seat, like shooting off of Catalina. You literally like fly down the mountain, like you fall off the mountain, and it's just you do have to be on your game with Catalina from what we've heard, but because it is weird, like landing, I think you can't see the end of the runway. It's sloped like this. It's kind of weird, so like you can't see the end, so it's a little tricky for sure, but it's very rewarding if you can do it and just do it successfully. And that departure is money, especially at sunset like we did. We formed up with a Cirrus SR22 Turbo. We'll just keep doing trips until one day we want to list it, which we keep pushing that away because we enjoy it so much.
Maybe we'll just wait for another postcard in the mail saying, hey, can I buy your plane? Some offer that we can't refuse. We'll probably have to do that. And then if the investment goes as planned, we get to put some of those dollars maybe towards some formal flight training for once. Maybe in the plane behind us.
Yes. I think we need to talk about this next video. It's time we talk about where some of the other Cirrus funds went toward this thing right behind us. So Bonanza, amazing plane. We love it. And one day I'm sure we will, once we have our pilot's license, you know, in the upcoming years, I could see us having a Bonanza in the garage just because they are so much fun. They look so good and they fly so good. And that has been our experience with this wonderful F-33A. So here's to many more good times with it to come, and hopefully a nice little profit when we go to sell it. So great experience, and we highly recommend to anyone else out there.
Hey gang, here from Hangar Talk. Thank you so much for plugging into the channel, liking, subscribing. We appreciate all you continuous subscribers, and we can't wait to see you on the next one.